This is my submission for the second assignment of the Emerging Technologies module. My project has pivoted slightly from what I initially proposed for the first assignment. It's still built in Unreal Engine 5.2, it still uses a nanite system for handling higher demanding meshes, and still has the sole purpose of being for entertainment. It's changed, however, from being a 360-degree video to an immersive VR experience that the user can explore. I've tried to keep the majority of the key beats that I showed in my concept storyboard, yet some have been repurposed and edited to better fit into this medium. My reference list of assets used will be at the end of this video, and additionally on my WordPress as the second part of this assignment. So when my project shifted to become the VR experience that's seen in the video, I had several key things that I needed to research and understand first. The main element that I needed to research was how to make VR blueprints in Unreal Engine. As I'm a 3D artist first and foremost, and coding/blueprinting is not my strong suit by any means. I had to find a way to make the experience fun and engaging, as previously when I was going to do the 360 video, the user was going to remain stood stationary and elements would happen around them, whereas now the player can move and interact with elements in the scene instead. The majority of the blueprints in this project came from following a Udemy tutorial for blueprinting in VR. I'd also like to say that for this video, I was using the Quest link to remotely connect to my computer, as I do not own a wired headset. This has resulted in a slight drop in the quality of the textures used in comparison to viewing the textures through the Unreal Engine viewport. When the user loads into the level, in front of them is a control scheme for this experience. This control scheme shows the user which inputs are needed to navigate around the space, how they're able to rotate the camera, how they can grab items, how to select and fire weapons, and how to bring up the menu. It also conveys to the user that if an object is outlined in white, they can grab and pull the item to them, making the experience more accessible for different people. For myself, this video was recorded within a small play space, so having the ability to remote pull an object was beneficial because of the amount of play space that I have. The board also indicates if an object is red, the user is able to climb the object. I'll discuss the climbing element further on. Additionally, the user has a space next to them that can hold an object, be it a cube, a bowl, a can of drink, a pistol, or a laser sword. This gives the user the ability for them to truly explore and experience this project however they want to. In the project, there are set areas that the user can teleport, marked out in Unreal by the use of nav mesh. Additionally, there are also nav meshes which dictate where a player cannot teleport, such as teleporting into the middle of the road where the cars are. This helps to maintain the presence and helps the user feel safe in this experience. This experience has 6 degrees of freedom, which allows the user to look around freely on all axes and then is also able to move on those axes as well. Typically, experiences that utilize 6 degrees of freedom have reduced symptoms of cyber sickness. However, this might vary between different users. As a result, I've included a plane underneath the user so that if the user does end up experiencing cyber sickness, they can look down and ground themselves. The only exception to the user being able to ground themselves at all times is the climbing activity. It is an optional activity that the user can experience, however it is not mandatory by any means. So if the user does not want to do it, or potentially they have a fear of heights, they can keep themselves feeling safe in the experience and having a better time. An additional benefit of my project pivoting to be a VR experience is that I can include spatial audio. Audio sources in this project have attenuation, so that if the user moves further away from the source, the volume will decrease, and then on the other hand, if the user gets closer to the source, the volume will increase. Audio within virtual reality can help build presence, which gives the user the feeling of actually being there. For this project, I focus on having a city ambience over having sound play whenever the user moves, as a study conducted on the effects of a soundscape and movement triggered step sounds on presence found that presence was reported to be lower when they're hearing step sounds due to there being imperfections in how the steps were reproduced. One of the key beats that I had originally planned to include for the 360-degree video was using Epic Games' metahumans and having them walk past the stationary camera. As the project pivoted to become a VR experience, I had to edit how I was going to use the metahumans. I decided to have them stood at certain spots in the level that the player could visit. I also took some Mixamo animations and was able to retarget them to the metahuman base skeleton to make them appear more alive than being in the standard T-pose that the metahumans come in. There is a slight graphical glitch when viewing some of the metahumans up close, which is most noticeable in the hair cards of the metahumans, but I believe that this is partially due to the use of the Quest link to stream the textures, rather than having a wired connection and using the processing power of my computer. An element that I had to unfortunately remove was having a fade in when changing levels. As seen in the video, when changing levels, it is an immediate change, which can be slightly disorientating for the user. During testing, having the fade-in worked, but it meant that the user could no longer teleport or interact with anything in the scene. I'm honestly unsure as to why this happened, but decided that in order to have a relatively finished project, it would be best to remove it. I believe that the direction that virtual reality is heading, the limitations of VR headsets will become less and less, and opportunities to push the boundary of this medium will rise. I believe that virtual reality can be used for a multitude of different entertainment pieces and games. I imagine that it would allow people to be able to connect to friends and family who might not be able to travel, or they might be in an entirely different country. Thank you for listening.